Hello, I'm back again to discuss something or make an understanding of one of the very prominently known poems, Church Going, written by Philip Larkin. The title is suggestive enough of a narrative about going to the church. A church or any place of worship stands long only when people are visiting that. If we put them to disuse, they could be church going away. So, church must be understood as not just a place, not just an institution, but also as faith or emblems of faith of people in some kind of goodness and which stands long on earth and attracts people more. Philip Larkin was a poet who, in his early times, got very much inspired by the writings of Hardy. Thomas Hardy, the pessimist. Thomas Hardy, who wrote down about the dark sides of life. Is Philip Larkin following suit? In trying to make an assessment of a small incident of visiting a church and thereby telling us how he went to the church, what he did when he went there, that is, his church going, or is that he's talking about the going away of church from the memories as also from the earth? Whatever it is, first we'll look into the poem and then we'll try to make conclusions as to what Philip Larkin should actually be meaning by this poem. We begin. Once I'm sure there is nothing going on, I step inside. The opening is a blunt expression which tells you that he goes to a church only when there is nothing going on. The going of the title and the going of the narrative. When nothing is going, it is church going. So, church going is in fact a kind of a passage out from the routine of everyday life. So, once I'm sure there is nothing going on, I step inside, letting the door thud shut. He shuts the door when he has entered in. Could he have done it if there were people sitting inside? I don't think churches ever can have their doors shut. He shuts the door. And then he says, another church, matting, seats and stone, and little books, sprawlings of flowers, cut for Sunday, brownish now, some brass and stuff up at the holy end, the small neat organ, and a tense, musty, unignorable silence brewed God knows how long. See, he's ends the sentence here. So it is a dispassionate and a down to earth narration of his church going. Once he has nothing else to do, he steps in, he shuts the door, and for him, this is just another church. Means there is nothing very special about it. As if churches should have something special, should have something different. No, they don't. They are the emblems of love, of faith for God, towards God, and therefore it is another church to him. And what makes it another church, not any different from the other one, is there are mattings in, there are seats, and there is a stone, and some books, and some sprawlings of flowers which have been cut for Sunday, and they have turned brownish now. Still, everything has the tone of a customariness about it. Everything has a tone of staleness about it. Some brass and stuff up at the holy end. So there are some statues or candle stands, maybe. They are standing in the distance, and there is a small neat organ on which they should be singing the choirs or the hymns. And a tense, musty, unignorable silence. So, one very special thing, one very peculiar thing about church on a day other than Sunday or on the late evening of a Sunday is that there is a tense, musty silence, and which goes unignored. The poet senses it. It is unignorable. You cannot get rid of that. The silence is as though haunting. And then there is a beautiful expression. Brood God knows how long. You can, by shifting the stress upon the words, let us read it differently. It brood God. That means God has been suffering all this mustiness, all this a stereotyped environment of the place, and it has been brewing God, or that this smell has brewed here, which only God knows for how long. So the two meanings show his real understanding of the place of worship, church. That people, since they visit only on Sundays, only God is left behind to make a perception of this unignorable silence. And God will definitely stay silent for all the neglect that is accorded to a church on the other weekdays. There comes a pause, and he continues with his reverie and says, hatless, I take off my cycle clips in awkward reverence. So when he has entered, though everything is appearing quite very mundane and quite very ordinary, there is something that forces him to take his hat off in reverence and remove the cycle clips that he has made himself his clothing upright with. But that reverence, he stresses. See the epithet that has been used here. The reverence is there. He acknowledges that he has some kind of reverence ushering in him, in his being. But that it is awkward. So the first stanza of the poem is a direct narrative of what he does when he has entered, what he witnesses, and what is the first thing that he does over there. He removes his hat and perceives a kind of reverence surging in him. move forward. So, with that reverence, he moves forward, run my hand around the font. So, there are fonts inscribed on the pews, and he runs his hand on the font. From where I stand, the roof looks almost new. Is it cleaned or restored? Someone would know. He doesn't know, and there is no one, even if he asked it, whether it was cleaned only recently or that it was restored completely, there is no one to answer him, because there is a silence, and God, who is there in church, he is not answering. Someone would know. I don't. A very matter of factness has been employed. The curt, present indefinite, that has been used here. This indefinite suggests the customariness of the visit. Then he mounts the lectern. I peruse a few hectoring large scale verses and pronouncing here endeth much more loudly than I'd meant. So he observes all the rituals which one observes when one has entered a church. He does everything in a dispassionate manner, in a manner that is very usual or common on Sundays. So, but that he ends it with more enthusiasm than he does the other things, which is implicit in his saying that here endeth is said much more loudly than I'd meant. In that silence, it was not needed that he retorted, here endeth. But he does it to convince himself that he is done with the ritual which he must have done when he came to the church. And when he has done it, the echoes snigger briefly. Echoes come back to him. Everyone, something from somewhere, from the corners, seem to resound, here endeth. This is a foretelling of something which he had implied in the title. Churches are hereby ending. We continue. Back at the door. So quickly, briskly, he does everything. And back at the door, I sign the book. Donate an Irish sixpence. Reflect, the place was not worth stopping for. And driven by the custom that he must have observed and which everyone observes since childhood, we are given to understand that church going is a ritual which everyone should perform if they need some kind of blessing from God. So the same he has done. He comes in, he does this, he does that, observes the silence, and reads out a few large scale verses with his hoarse throat, and echoes and speaks aloud, here endeth, which is echoed back. And he immediately turns back to the door, signs a book, and donates an Irish sixpence. It is like a very, very meager amount, very unnoticeable amount. Why at all does he do it? Because it's a custom to give an offering before you leave the church. And he says that for all the stillness in the environment, for all the isolation, for all the silence in the church, he's obliged not to make a large-hearted donation. And what he does is just the Irish sixpence. And then after having done that, he makes a reflection. He makes an assessment what he has done. And after having a view of what he has done, he reflects also so very immediately. It doesn't take much time. to come to the conclusion that the place was not worth stopping for. We will continue tomorrow, but before I end, I would like to ask you, is he romanticizing the ritual of church going? What could be the purpose for Philip Larkin to write down a poem which he begins on a church? Anything, any place that seems to be housing God, divinity, and attracts all the souls that have the same spirit which God has sent for us. Should they all be feeling the same? Does a church bring no change to one's life? Does it bring no enthusiasm to the intruder or a passerby, as the poet himself says that he does it as though he did it because he had nothing else to do? How far do you feel he's commenting upon a very harsh reality with a note of pessimism? Is this not what many of us should be doing when we go to our places of worship? And while you are thinking, and while I will bring forth the text written by Larkin, just think it over. Just give it a thought. Poems are not just meant to be read, they are the passionate and intellectual expressions which a creator, poets are creators, which a creator had in mind. And if it was meant to upsurge in his heart and die back down into him, it would not have been handed over to generations to come. They are handed over to us so that we think them over. We validate the documentation of those truths which the poets perceived, which the creators perceived and left for us as a legacy. When we are not church going, did we not do the church going when we read the text? We were all in the same spirits. Thank you.